Now I'm going to break this easy bake into two, actually, possibly three. And the reason is, this is all about sourdough, not soda bread, sourdough. And not sourdough with yeast in, this is pure sourdough. So part one really is, I want to talk to you a little bit about the starter, or the chef, or the madre, as it's called in many countries throughout Europe. Now, what is a starter? Well, basically you're going to harness wild yeast at home. So you're going to grow your own wild yeast. Now, to do that, you need flour and water, and that's pretty much it. Now, I've read a lot of books. You see a lot of books with how you start it. You do see the odd video and explaining it. This is a very basic, straight through, to the point, and what you're looking for at the end. So we have the end one and how you start it. So you will start with strong white flour, into which equal amounts of flour to water. And all you're going to do with that is just stir it together with a fork. You get a fork in there. And it's a very soft looking dough. That there, you want to put that into a sealed little container. Now that sealed little container, you're going to leave for about 2 to 3 days. Now, that lump of dough needs sealing or covering up. If it's in a small little unit as it's growing, you can see them growing because it will grow in 2 to 3 days. If you find it's quite active and starts to bubble on the second day, that's good. Chances are it's probably going to be end of the second, beginning of the third. And on the third day, you'll see this beginning to bubble and grow. And that's got no yeast in it. That's just flour and water. The wild yeast, the spore, the lactobacillus, which is the bacteria that's in the air, and it's mainly around sort of greenery and countryside. You get it all over the world, but it's everywhere, it's airborne. Once that gets in to the flour and water, it feeds on the flour, produces carbon dioxide, and then you get this growth, natural growth with natural wild yeast. It's very different to baker's traditional bread, which is baker's yeast, which is made from sugar. This is wild yeast, which gives the sourdough its pungent, that little kick, that little smell, that characteristic flavour that you look for in a good sour. So you leave this for 2 to 3 days. Once it's grown, you need to feed it again because it's exhausted the flour. It needs more to keep it growing, to keep it alive. So you want to mature that flavour. You want to get that beautiful flavour coming from your sour. So because you don't want to double it, throw half away. If you want to use it in a straight bread dough with yeast, that's fine. Use it in a dough, it'll add a little bit of flavour to it. So the remaining bit, add the same again, equal amounts of flour, more water the same again, mix that together with a fork, leave it again, 1 to 2 days, possibly 2 days. In the second day, you'll find it bubbling a little bit quicker than the first time. So rather than 3 days, it might take 2 days. It may even take 1 day, depending on where you are and how warm it is. Try and keep your starter in an environment of 20 degrees. You don't want it to dip below 10. So it'll still work, but it just takes longer, that's all. So on the second day, throw half away again, or put it in the bread, feed it again. More flour, more water, same as I did here. Mix that together, and that will grow. And as it starts to grow, it'll get faster and faster each time you feed it. Once it starts to grow within a day, you know it's become very active. And what you're looking for is this. Now this is mine. I've only had this one for about 6-7 months or so. It's got a beautiful smell to it. It's quite an earthy smell. Now if you see all the little bubbles in the top, you see all those beautiful little, it's active, it's really active, it's alive. So in replacement of using yeast in my bread, I use this. For instance, I think it's 450 grams of flour, and I use 150 grams of this in replacement of yeast in my dough, and that gives it a beautiful flavour. It's not going to come up, it's not going to rise like a conventional bread. It takes much longer. In fact, when I've added this to my dough, it normally takes me 10 to 12 hours. If it's a bit warmer, it can take 10, possibly 9. In the winter, when it gets a bit cooler in my kitchen, it takes a little bit longer. It can take 12 hours. But in here, you have these beautiful bubbles. If I just open that up a little bit, if you look at that, it's like a sponge. You see that? It's like a sponge inside. Look at those bubbles in there. It's beautiful. So what I'm doing, if I was going to make a sourdough now, I might do later, but if I was going to make a sour now, I would take a big scoopful of this. Look at that. Gloopy. It smells lovely. Take a couple of scoops of that, which is about 150 grams, and I'll use that in my sourdough later. But because you're depleting your sour now, you need to feed this. So again, you add a little bit of flour to your mixture, to your starter, your madre, and a little bit of water, equal amounts of water. Blend that together with the rest of it in the bowl. Get your fork in there, right down to the bottom, scrape down the sides. And then that will come back, that'll actually grow again within 8 hours. If you're not going to use it, or you know, say, I'm not going to make a sourdough this week or this month, get the whole thing, pop it in the fridge, leave it in the fridge weeks, months, it's fine. You'll end up with a little brown film on it. And you think, oh no, it's gone off. Just tip that away. You can fold it in, but I tend to tip it away. Then feed it with more flour and water, and it'll come straight back to life again. That is the secret to a good starter. Once it's active within 8, 9, 10 hours, you can utilize it and make the best sourdough ever, and it will change your life. Well, that's part 1. That's how you make your starter, to make your sourdough. Part 2, you're going to have to subscribe, like it, come back and watch all my other easy bake recipes. But part 2 of the sourdough, you're not going to want to miss. Get baking. I need to put this somewhere warm.